Hey everybody, welcome to Trading Capital's daily live stream of the market open. Today is currently May 1st, a brand new trading month here to start and try to make some money. So, lots of news hitting the wire today right ahead of the big FOMC rate hike. We also have tons of economic data throughout this whole week along with the FOMC. So it's going to be jam-packed volatile. Obviously, Jamie Dimon and JP Morgan are now assuming responsibility and taking under First Republic. As of today, 87 branches of First Republic are no longer FRC. They are under JP Morgan Chase and Company. So it's been a fire sale. Basically, JP Morgan has popped on that news because Jamie Dimon has said they're estimated to make just roughly $2.6 billion right off the hop from making that, and then an additional $500 million in revenue. So we have a short level on JP Morgan. I'm not chasing this pop-up because it is gapping up 4 or 5%. You can see that it's into these pivot highs over here. It did pierce those levels, but really the only short level for this name is around this 147.98. Let's see if we can get a momentum push in the markets to take us up to that level. Out of all of the top 7 mega caps, all 7 except for 1 are negative on the session today. So you have Apple down, Microsoft down, Amazon down, Google down. Nvidia is the positive one, go figure. And then Tesla and Meta are also negative. Alright, so in terms of trades, JP Morgan, we're looking on the short side. I am looking at Comcast CMCSA also for a potential short. The level I like on CMCSA is basically anything above 42.17. You can see that we've had a beautiful gap up on earnings, an initial follow through, and now it looks to be we may get a 3-bar surge into a decent technical resistance level. So that's kind of what I'm paying attention to. You also had SoFi gap up on earnings. They're looking like one of the major beneficiaries of the overall regional banking crisis. SoFi actually reported on their earnings an influx of depositors. So that is positive for SoFi at this moment. But again, I don't know. If we look at the longer term trend of SoFi, I wouldn't be so sure to say that this stock is out of the woodwork. You're still in a massive downtrend. Yes, you're maybe putting in some sort of a basing formation here, but if you look at the monthly, there's really not too much data to go on, and you may have an inside bull flag forming here off of a monthly chart, but there's still tons and tons of resistance. I mean, look at this hammer reversal on the monthly. That's mega. You also have this huge multi-month sell-off that you need to start working itself through. So we'll keep SoFi on the radar. Really the only level I have for a short on SoFi. Let me just take a look here. I do have a long opportunity as well. I'll discuss that after the SoFi trade. So the level I have isolated on SoFi, it actually went all the way up to, let me just see what the pre-market high, it went all the way up to about $6.98. So I have a level on SoFi around a pierce of $7. A pierce of $7, and we can get in on the short side. Okay, so keep that on the radar. And then I'm looking at Freeport-McMoRan for a long trade. It is gapping up right now, just slightly. The reason I'm looking for a long trade intraday, we may not get this pattern within the first, half hour of trading. I want to see a pattern develop. Intraday, one of the reasons I think Freeport-McMoRan is popping, well, it's a simple reason, copper. Copper is surging today. So if we look at the copper chart here, look at that pop on copper. And a lot of the other commodities like gold also getting a pop. You have silver also getting a pop. So it's really interesting to see oil taking a beating down just 1.5%. We'll see if natural gas can continue to go positive there. But definitely interested in playing this copper trade for a potential long. But again, I want to see it pull back, and then we can get on the long side based off of bullish patterns. So that's kind of the stocks that I am watching right now. I'm just scrolling through to see if there's anything else on my list. Just give me 1 second. Those were the main 3. You have had a few other upgrades, downgrades, but nothing really too crazy in the sense of moving. I'm just scrolling through. Healthcare, AMD's catching a big bid today. So that's one of the semis that are actually outperforming. So AMD's catching a bit up 2% in the pre-market, and then you have Micron basically faltering about 2%. So a little bit of a weird divergence there. Maybe people are just playing the Sympathy trades back and forth. They're rotating into Micron, rotating out of Micron, rotating into AMD. Some of the gold miners are up today. Coinbase is down today along with Bitcoin. You have some China stocks, the meme stocks, pumping. So look at this JZ. I mean, this JZ is up over, it closed on Friday up 29%, and now it's up another 24% in the pre-market. So massive, massive move in some of these names. At 9:45 a.m. we have some manufacturing data, the PMIs. So 9:45 and 10 is a big, big data set release. Some of the China stocks are mixed. PDD slightly down, Baidu's up, Carvana's up. Go figure, Carvana had a massive bond offering due, and they're actually up on the session. In terms of some earnings this morning, I'll just scroll through some of the earnings that came out. So basically, if we start the pre-market, you had, let me just find where I'm at. So you had Vertex Pharmaceuticals, Stryker, you had ANET, Arista Network, NXPI, Vici, WC, ON. ON's another one actually that I did a little bit of work on. It needs to go higher, but my level on ON for a potential short is going to be the $77 level, a Pierce of $77. So Pierce of $77, okay? Gap fill, you got the hourly 200 MA, 2 little factor trade. It has had a 2-bar surge off of a bottom low, so this would be the 3-bar surge right into resistance, which should be a pretty sound technical level. So we'll see what type of action. We have about 5 minutes till the market open. The spiders are falling just a little bit, ever so slightly off of the high. So we closed at 415.93 and we're now at 415.21. So we have about 4 minutes now to the open. JP Morgan is still holding. It's interesting to see some of the divergence in the banks. So you have XLF up. JP Morgan's obviously the big standout. Wells Fargo's getting a nice bid. Goldman's lagging. Morgan Stanley's lagging. UBS is lagging. Deutsche Bank is lagging. PNC Financial's under a little bit of pressure this morning. So PNC is very interesting as a largest regional bank. What I'm observing in this particular price action on the daily chart, so on the daily chart of PNC has actually been trying to break out of this little consolidation pattern. And you got a little bit of an attempt at a breakout, but now it's looking to gap lower. And you're looking a little bit more vulnerable at this point in time. So if this turns into a failed breakout for PNC, which is the largest regional bank, that's not going to bode well for the regional banking sector. Let's move back to the S&P. We'll switch to the 5-minute chart, but be ready for that data at 9:45 and 10. PMIs, ISM. If they come in hot, it'll spike the dollar. If they come in lower, it may drop the dollar. But there's interesting enough, some of the data that has come in worse than expected has actually initially dropped the dollar, and then the dollar just keeps getting bought back up. And I think we're at an inflection point where even if the American economic data starts to wane and weaken, it may be holding up better than the domestic and emerging economies. So we have to remember that who's the largest exporter and trading partner with most countries? It's US. So if the US economic output and GDP is declining, then that means the rest of the world is also going to be declining. All right, so we're set to open. Keep those Comcast, JP Morgan, and FCX on your radar. SoFi as well, and we'll see what type of action we get. Whoa. Whoa, whoa, whoa. A little bit of a bump up there. Alright, so we have 2 minutes till the opening bell. Nat gas and oil are bouncing off of the lows. KRE is catching a small bid here today. You have Bitcoin putting in a bear flag consolidation. Gold is popped. So it's probably going to be a pretty fairly quiet day ahead of the Fed, ahead of some of the mega cap final earnings. Apple obviously this week after the Fed meeting, but there's tons of economic data. Tons and tons of economic data that can swing things. Yields today are catching a bid. So Microsoft got a nice bid there ahead. Spiders are open. Nvidia's gapped up. JP Morgan's gapped up. Apple's trying to push up. So the spiders are pushing up. Apple just made a brand new high, intraday high. Comcast is peeling away a little bit. JP Morgan is well off of the highs. QQQ is still trying to hold up. Nvidia is starting to come down. AMD's up 1.5%. Intel's slightly down. Tesla's down 1.27. Apple's continuing to push higher. Sorry guys, I'll mute that. Alright, so the Nvidia is starting to pull in from the highs here. Nvidia is pulling in from the highs. Nothing crazy going on as of yet. Markets are just kind of floating around, not really making a big directional move, so there's no real trade setups as of yet. Just be patient to see if the market gives us anything. Amazon's down today. Microsoft is catching a nice little bid higher. Yep, regionals, banks are under a little bit more pressure today. PNC is down now quite substantially, almost 5% down on PNC. That's very interesting. So will we see more rotation of capital into big tech to make the valuations that much more extreme? Time will tell. Intel's falling a little lower. Freeport McMoran is coming in sharper now. So that one, if it came back into gap fill, I'll pull up this FCX chart. If FCX came back into gap fill, we can play it for a quick long bounce. Take a look at the IWM. That's holding up. KRE had a little bit of a dump there. It's now gone negative by 1% after being positive. Copper's holding up well. Nvidia is starting to reverse from the highs. It's still positive on the session though. Oil's caught a small bounce. Spiders are still holding up really well. HUDI is down 40%. Jeez. Look at that gap down. I don't even really have a level on this. It's too thin, not enough volume. Nvidia catching another bounce. Tesla's still coming lower, but trying to bounce. Pinterest is still off of the lows from Friday, but also under pressure. The dollar's starting to creep up a little bit, just a little bit here. Home builders still acting very resilient. Nvidia, big push on Nvidia. It's pushing up to the 280 level. Massive push. Nvidia is now up over 0.7%. I believe we do have AMD earnings tomorrow. Let me just double check this on the daily chart. Yeah, so we do have AMD earnings tomorrow, so that's going to be interesting to impact the semis. Micron, that's under a little bit of pressure but holding up. Nvidia is still acting very, very well. Trying to push to that 280 level. Tesla's under pressure. So no real trades yet, just sitting patient, waiting. The volatility is not happening today. Spiders are pushing up. They just made a new high, taking out Friday's high, but the Qs are lagging, and that's because of Apple, Microsoft, Tesla. But Nvidia is making a new high up to 280 on Nvidia. Impressive move on Nvidia. They're pumping the semis right ahead of AMD earnings. It's kind of interesting to note. Costco's under a lot of pressure. Costco's falling and is down already 2.1%. So they have a dividend coming up, which is probably why they're falling. JP Morgan's off of the level. China stocks are acting well today. Spiders are pulling in from the highs. Tesla's coming down sharper now, guys. We may have a long trade on Tesla, but the level that I like on that trade would have to be basically all the way down to 157.40, 157.40 Pierce. So keep Tesla window open. I might be interested in going long. The Qs are coming in off of the highs now, just slightly. So it's a pretty quiet session still. You do have the regionals under pressure, KRE falling. Amazon's under a little bit of pressure. There might be a little bit of a level on Amazon for a long trade. Let me just see if I can isolate down the technical level. So So the potential long on Amazon is around 101.62. Spiders are trying to push up. Nvidia's over 280 now, so Nvidia's surging to the upside. Nvidia's had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 2-hour green candles in a row. That's 16 hours of upside with no consolidation. But it is pushing. It's acting well. It's up 1.16, diverging from the Qs. The Qs are negative, but Nvidia is positive. So you can clearly see where the money flow is flowing into. Herd mentality, chasing the most expensive stock in the market right now. And it's pushing up even more. Could be a short squeeze occurring, but it is lifting the Qs somewhat here. Tesla got a big bounce, so that's pretty much off of the radar right now. But markets are pumping higher. Nvidia's at 281. It's into a double top. Big volume coming in on Nvidia. Out of the volume, there's quite a bit of volume coming in Nvidia. Amazon's down 1.4, AMD's up 1.3, Ford's up, Snap's up, Bank of America's slightly positive. Still looking at Comcast, JP Morgan's way off of our short level. So we have that data coming out in 5 minutes. There is economic data out in 5 minutes. And the spiders are pushing up and making a little new high. The Qs still haven't made a new high. Oil's got a nice bounce. It's recaptured half of the losses, so it's only down 1.1% now. Nice move on the oil chart. The yield, the 2-year yield is trying to push and make a new high. It's still underneath the 200 moving average, but it's trying to recapture that area. So we shall see what this 10 a.m. data, 9:45 and 10 a.m. data does for the market. Qs are rolling over. Regionals are still under a lot of pressure today. So regionals are now down. The KRE is down 1%, over 1%. And it is somewhat hurting crypto as well. Bitcoin's putting in some bearish consolidation. Gold is holding up. Microsoft is just slightly positive. Tesla's coming back down. Meta's still negative. Natural gas is just slightly negative. Nvidia's making a new high again. It's up to 281, just above 281. Seems to be a powerhouse beast of a stock. Uber's up 4.7, so that's a big lift on Uber. Spiders are trying to push up some more here. Nvidia keeps surging higher. Nvidia's up to almost 282 now. Huge surge on Nvidia. Spiders are seeing a little bit of selling and distribution at this point, but still acting well. Alright, so we have data in 2 minutes. The economic data is coming out in 2 minutes. Meta is starting to fall a lot sharper now. So Meta is making new pre-market lows, or sorry, new intraday lows. Microsoft's also coming down. Spiders are still just briefly positive, where the Qs are slightly negative. So we have data in 1 minute. ON Semiconductor hit that level that I gave, but I wasn't paying attention. Look at that pullback. That was a nice day trade pullback right at 77. Anyone that caught that, nice job. I wasn't paying attention. You snooze, you lose. You snooze, you lose. Nat gas is falling. So we should be receiving some data right about now. The spiders are pushing up. Apple's near the highs. Microsoft's selling off here a little bit. So is Meta, but it's catching a small bounce. Amazon's coming back down as well. I do like Amazon for a potential long trade. Right around the 102.06 area. 102.06, but spiders are hanging in there. Meta's catching a big bid here. Microsoft's still the weaker name out of the mega caps. It's actually negative, whereas Nvidia, Apple's positive, Tesla's negative, Amazon's negative, but catching a bid. Spiders are pushing up yet again. Spiders are now hitting its first resistance at this 416.50 level. There's another one just under 417 resistance on the SPY. So the data that came out was the PMI. Forecast was 50.4, it came in at 50.2, so less than expected, which shows that the economy is still technically slowing down. It's not negative this month, but we'll see what the ISM manufacturing in 14 minutes has. The forecast for that is negative. It's forecasting 46.8, so we'll see if that comes anything lower or higher. Volume is very light today. Very light volume session again. Meta's starting to uptick a little bit. Apple's still remaining near the highs or at the highs. So the markets are trying to push up here a little bit. Spiders are still hanging in there near the highs of the session. Again, the volume trends are exceptionally light today. Exceptionally light. And you are on watch for a technical daily breakout. We'll see if it happens today. But the market's trying to break out right ahead of the Fed meeting. Costco's still under extreme pressure, down 2.41%. Walmart's holding up. Wells Fargo's pushing, JP Morgan's pushing, KRE's lagging clearly. Microsoft's trying to catch a small bid here. The dollar's trying to catch a small little bid. Ford is also catching a nice bid. That's up quite nicely. SoFi, after being up in the market, up 6%. Look at this reversal. Whew. Look at that nasty reversal in SoFi. That's not real much confidence in that company for it being up 6% and then having a big reversal, down 6%. Some other movers are Uber, Lyft. Lyft is lagging. Lyft actually has some intraday bullish consolidation on the daily chart. This is nice. Big move up, consolidation sideways right around this pivot zone underneath the 50 daily moving average. You have a tight stop loss below this green bar. This is actually a potential long trade. Interesting. Let's look at the Dow Transports here. They're catching a bid. UPS, that's catching a big bid. UPS is coming up into this first resistance here, where you can see it broke down, confirmed, and now it's doing a full retrace. IWM is acting well right now. KRE has had a big bounce, but still acting poorly. XLF, PNC. PNC is back underneath this trend line. We'll see if it closes back below there. Spider Daily, the big level is, do we get a close above Friday's close? That's the big level I'm watching on the spiders. As of now, the markets are pushing up. The volume trends are still very light. Gold is falling a little bit. Bitcoin's putting in some bearish consolidation. Take a look at this bear flag. You can see it on the hourly chart nicely. Nice big move down, bearish consolidation. If Bitcoin was to flush into this low pivot down here, these lows, within the next hour, we could go long Bitcoin. Let's see coin. That's under a little bit of pressure this morning. Let's see MSTR. That's also under some slight pressure. MARA. That's under a little bit of pressure. AI. AI is trying to catch a little bit of a bid. Pins. Pins is still trying to see some selling after that big drop on Friday. So Pins chart, I'm not liking it anymore. It was looking a little bit more bullish to move up, but the big level you lost was this trend line. You haven't confirmed, but that's a big, big loss of a technical level. Gold is pulling in off of the highs here. Let's do a silver check. Not really seeing anything yet. Still eyeing up a few things, but nothing that is catching my eye for a trade. It's very, very slow. That's the only thing about Fed week, or a couple days prior to Fed week, is the volatility gets sucked out. And we're clearly seeing that. We are clearly seeing that. Meta's trying to push up to the highs. Spiders just made a new high. The QQQ just made a new high as well. So strength is coming back to tech. JP Morgan's pulled off of the highs. Oil's still trying to bounce. So the 2-year yield has softened a little bit. 10-year yield is also softened. Still positive on the session up 1.37. The 2-year yield's up 2.2. The 20-year yield's up 0.92. All the mega caps have now officially gone positive, all the FANG names, but Apple's pulling in off the highs on some heavy intraday volume. Microsoft's starting to push up, so a little bit of capital rotation looks like it's coming out of Apple into Microsoft. We'll see if it comes out as a whole. Meta's back to the positive side, but now Apple's starting to see some weakness. Heavy volume coming in on JP Morgan as well. So we'll see if JP Morgan takes out the lows here. Nice little reversal on Apple. Heavy volume on that 5-minute candle. Nvidia's starting to come down a little bit. AMD's almost gone negative. Take a look at Micron. Let's see the SMH as a whole. So the SMH is up today 0.52%, 0.5%. And Nvidia is up 1.43. So Nvidia is clearly the standout semi that is lifting this particular index. But this is what I want to bring to your attention. Notice how the semis are right at the 50 daily moving average, lagging tremendously. You look at the Qs breaking out to new highs well above the 50. You look at the spiders trying to break out to new highs well above the 50. So whenever you have the semis lagging the market, that is not a good sign. That is definitely not a good sign for the market. And it's really, the semis have only been lifted from the deep abyss because of really one stock, Nvidia, surging and making new highs. So the Qs just went back to the negative side. The spiders are trying to trickle down a little bit here. You have the DXY trying to make some intraday bullish consolidation. The DXY is slightly positive here. It was up a little bit more pre-market. But it's interesting to see if we can break out of this consolidation. But as of now, markets are hanging in there. Apple's coming in a little bit more now. Microsoft just went back to the negative side. Apple just went negative as well. So we're starting to see some of the mega caps after briefly going positive. We're now seeing the mega caps go negative. Amazon's negative, Apple's negative, Microsoft slightly negative. No trades that I'm seeing that are really worth entering at this point in time. Things could still change. We have data coming out in 3 minutes that should cause some movements. The 2-year yield is trying to make a new intraday high. And it's trying to attack the 200 daily moving average at 4.12%. AMD has had a massive selling pressure. So that is not healthy for the semis. AMD literally falling from grace. AMD falling from grace. Look at that sell side pressure. It's still positive, but definitely under a lot of pressure. So the Qs are getting another bid. We have the data coming out in 2 minutes. Natural gas is still slightly negative. Regionals have had a big bounce. Bitcoin's under a little bit of pressure right now, and it's looking like it wants to break an hourly bear flag pattern. PNC regional has had a decent bounce. Tesla's still down in the session. Amazon, Apple's still down. Nvidia's still surging. Meta just went negative again. Big dump on the spiders here. Whoa. They did not like that data. That data came in way better than expected, and that has spiked the dollar. That has spiked the dollar. Look at that spike in the dollar. That's the only reason the market sold off there. Alright, so now we're going to be looking at some potential longs. If we get a flush here, the markets did not like that data. That spiked the 2-year yield. It's now back above the 200 daily moving average and climbing. It is back above the 200 and climbing. So that data was not well received by the stocks, despite it being better than expected. So let me just see if there's some potential opportunities. Let's take a look at that FCX again. FCX almost hit that gap fill. It never officially filled it. Never officially filled it. And since you're getting a bounce now, we want to lower our entry. We want to lower our entry. I like it right around that level. Around this 37.80. But spiders are coming down some more now. So the market did not like that. But now we might get some opportunities. Qs are rolling over now at the lows of the session. Coinbase is breaking a key trend line. Guys, there's a potential long on AMD around 88.85, 88.85. If it comes into it, 88.85. It's an aggressive level. Spiders are bouncing, getting bought right back up. AMD had a massive bounce. The Dixie's still surging. The 2-year yield's above its 200 daily moving average. Take a look at that Dixie surging. The Dixie is now up 0.19%. If we get a close above this pivot, that's very, very bullish. Very bullish for the Dixie, especially if we get it on an hourly close. That'll be a big reversal of the breakdown. Let's watch that carefully. Take a look at gold. Gold had a big dump off that dollar. Silver, big dump. So we'll see if the spiders come back down some more. But as of now, buy the dip just came right back in. And go figure, Nvidia just made a new high after that initial dip. It just keeps getting bought right back up. Natural gas is falling. Apple put in a 10-minute topping tail reversal. We'll see if that holds. Meta's falling sharply lower. AMD's catching a big bid. Amazon's under a lot of pressure today. So I'm still interested in maybe an Amazon long trade, but it needs to come down a little bit more. Spiders are still falling. Natural gas is now down. It's falling sharply lower, down 1.37%. So Bitcoin caught a little bit of a bid there. First Solar caught a bid. Microsoft is pulling off the highs. It's still negative. Potentially an hourly topping tail forming on Microsoft. Still too early to tell, but it's worth watching. Amazon's coming down some more. Micron's down 2.14%. AMD's almost negative, but it has a big bounce coming in. We'll see if the markets continue to come down here. It's looking likely they will, because the Dixie is not really giving up most of its gains here. FCX is coming down, guys. FCX, keep that level on watch. I don't like the gap fill anymore because we had a bounce there. Keep Freeport on the radar for a long trade. I will be watching that. Let's watch the spiders some more. Microsoft is falling sharply lower here. Microsoft is falling pretty sharply. So is Meta. Meta is also responding negatively. Microsoft falling, but Nvidia is keeping the tech and a little bit insulated here with its massive gains. And if you look at Apple, Apple's pulled in. Nvidia is the only one that hasn't really responded to a down market here. Dollar's still near the highs. So the dollar, if the dollar closes above 101.85 on an hourly close, that is super bullish for the dollar. Natural gas is catching a small bounce here. So JP Morgan's continuing to come down. And the big question is, do we see profit taking ahead of the Fed meeting? Usually that is the case, especially since markets have had such a rip-roaring rally to the upside. But Nvidia is not retreating at all. Nvidia is still up over 1.88%, just soaring and roaring on Nvidia. Spiders is trading at 416. The SPX is trading at 41.71. The dollar's still holding most of its gains from that initial surge higher. And the 2-year yield is up now 3.6%. The 10-year yield's up 2.7, and the 20-year yield's up 1.94. So if you look at TLT, TLT just got wrecked. Still no trades. Still eyeing up Freeport McMoran. That one's still technically valid around this 37.80 level. Aggressive, you can start a position at 37.80. Conservative, you can start a position at 37.67. I may take the first level, but look at this dollar. Just continuing. Gold is falling. Look at GDX rollover. Gap up, fade. Let's do AMD. AMD's coming back down. So Nvidia's really the only one that's not coming down with this market. Amazon's coming down, Meta's coming down, Microsoft's coming down. Tesla's actually holding up now, so that's interesting to see. Let's do a regional bank check. That's starting to see some more selling. IWM is also coming down. Bitcoin's holding up. Bitcoin is holding up. Spiders are still hanging in there and trying to bounce. It's exceptional, the strength in some of these mega caps. Just plugging in some of my devices, some chargers here. Spiders are still hanging in there. We're going to watch Freeport here. Natural gas has had a nice dip and then a big bounce, so that's good to see. It's still negative, but maybe has a shot at going positive. Amazon's making new lows here intraday. Nvidia is finally seeing some minor, very minor. It hasn't had one red candle today, even with that big sell-off in the indices. But we'll see, that can change. Spiders are catching a bid though. Spiders are catching that bid. Take a look at coin. Coin is hanging on by a thread here. If you look at the daily chart, the level I'm watching on coin is this trend line. Right now we're trading just briefly under it, but you still have this little Bailey reversal over here. Nvidia is continuing to push up. So spiders are still resilient, not giving up any of the gains really. It's still very early on. You may see profit taking commence at some point in time during this market ahead of Fed. But it's pretty slow, so considering it's a pretty slow day, I'm probably going to wrap up the stream a little bit early. We obviously don't have any trades unless we get some crazy action in the next 10 minutes or so. I may wrap this stream up. Meta's falling a little bit. Microsoft's still peeling away, coming down. Freeport McMoran got a small bounce before our level. So I don't like it when it gets a bounce before. The dollar's still holding above the key level on the 10-minute chart. Now it needs to confirm on the 20, and then the 30 slowly inch itself up to the larger term time frames. And it's interesting because now if you look at the DXY daily, I'll show you something interesting here. So the DXY daily has been really putting in the sideways consolidation. It looks very interesting. And you're at this double bottom. So the last time we had this double bottom zone was right around here and here. And look at how it had a big soaring rally. Now, obviously a lot of people say, oh, this time is different. The dollar's putting a high. I'm not so sure about that. The dollar's actually now above the 20-day moving average. So I don't have that on this chart right now. But if I were to change one of these moving averages, so I'm going to change the 50 briefly to the 20. You can see now it's above the 20 moving average, which is this purple line. So just pay attention to that because you can see it's been resistance here, throughout this whole consolidation pattern. The 20 moving average has been major resistance. Even when you had an attempt at a breakout over here, which failed, forced you to come back lower, in this whole consolidation, this purple moving average has been the resistance. You tried piercing it off of this breakout, got rejected, and now you're back above that level. So that's going to be an important daily level to watch on the dollar. Okay, so just pay attention to that aspect of the market. A lot of people are still writing the dollar off. Could it dip a little bit lower to about 100 again, test this zone again? Yes, it could, but we have a weekly and monthly reversal in play on the dollar, which is still technically intact. But markets are acting very resilient right now. If the spider's still holding up, they haven't taken out the highs, but still holding up. The SMH may be a potential hourly topping tail forming. We'll know in about 17 minutes, right off that resistance. So if this forms an hourly topping tail, you're likely going to see some weakness in Nvidia start to creep in. But this stock has been in a powerhouse. And you compare some of the peers, gap up reversal on AMD, gap up reversal on Micron. Let's take a look at some of the other ones. Skyworks, that one's gone negative. So really it's just Nvidia that's keeping this up. Let's take a look at Intel. Intel's also gapping up and going negative. So interesting price action in the semis, right ahead of AMD earnings. But as of now, the markets are light volume, so they do favor that upside. And we'll just see if it can hold on. Gold is continuing to sell, so that's telling me that the dollar is likely going to continue to hold its gains. And what I'm watching now on the dollar, do you get a 30-minute close and an hourly close above this breakout? If you do, that's not positive for the market. This is the level to watch on gold, this 1987 level. That is the level on an hourly close. In 45 minutes, if you get a close below this green bar, you're going to test the low end of the range at around 1969. So pay attention to that, because that is a big level for gold. Massive. And the dollar's at the highs of the session, continuing to push. Continuing to push. The Qs are now coming back down again, starting to roll hot and heavy. That SMH is starting to roll over a little bit more now. AMD's almost negative. SoFi's down 7.6% after being up over 6.5%, 7%. Just doing my stretching. That's the benefits of a standing desk. You get to keep healthy posture, stretch while we look for setups. Dollar's still pushing up higher, guys. Dollar is still pushing up higher. Wow, take this look at SLV. Friggin' just a big fade on silver. Massive move down. Now gold's catching a bid. So it's trying, and that's because the dollar's softening. If you look at natural gas, that's also still under pressure. But this is definitely the key level to watch. Spider's right back up. Can't keep this market down. So it seems. Spiders are pushing up again. Almost a new high on the SPY. Almost a new high on the SPY. Spiders just made a new high. SPX pushing. Just ignoring the dollar. Markets do not care. Wow, look at this push on the SPX and the SPY. Just crazy strength in this market right now. Is it FOMO? Is it a real bull market? What is going on right here? And you have volatility being crushed again, the UVXY. So gold and silver are still under a big pressure right now. Dow's trying to push up. S&P still at the highs, making a new high. Even with the S&P making a new high, Microsoft didn't, Apple didn't, and Nvidia didn't make a new high. So a little bit of relative weakness creeping into mega cap tech, even though the indices are making a new high. The Qs didn't make a new high though, so MSFT is running into some near-term distribution. So on the hourly chart, we have a potential tail forming. 11 minutes left to save it. 11 minutes left to save it. But the spiders are pushing. And it's interesting, if we look at where we are on the SPY, so we're trying to break out, clear attempt at breaking out. This is when Powell rug pulled us at the Jackson Hole. This big red bar down, which is the area we're into, is where Powell rug pulled us. So will he do something similar again? Time will tell, but we are still extended on the weekly, monthly charts, and it's more so, yes, the indices have had some consolidation, but the moves that have pushed us up have really been concentrated in mega cap tech. So that is the area that is truly, truly extended. SMH has rolled over now, so take a look at this SMH rolling over. We are getting an hourly reversal candle, and then potentially even a daily reversal candle off of that 50 daily moving average, and that's part and parcel AMD falling to the lows. Just look at that harsh sell-off. It is coming into this technical support on AMD. Interesting. Getting an alert on this VKTX. That is making a new high. It's up over 4%. Let me see if I have a short trade on this one. It's high risk, but this stock is just in the stratosphere. Wow, look at this double top that's incoming on VKTX. If it were to push up into double top, I would short it, but it's not there yet. It's still about, but this stock moves pretty quickly. Still about 10% away. Alright, let's go back to the S&P here. Still holding up near the highs. Still holding up. Nvidia is trying to push up some more. Yeah. So money's clearly rotating out of the semiconductors and right into Nvidia. Nvidia is the only semi that's not falling here. Despite this huge reversal in the semis, Nvidia is the one stock that is still pumping and making new highs. So just pay attention to that. It seems like money's rotating out of AMD into Nvidia. Now there is a long trade on AMD that I am watching. Because we got a bounce here, I don't like this previous level that I had there. I would have to move it down a little bit more to about 88.57. But again, look at the sell-off coming in on the spiders, guys. So now it's starting to get interesting. Meta new low. Meta new low. Microsoft's reversing. Dollar's still surging up. Nvidia's still pumping. I'm going to do a semiconductor trade, guys, along on the SMH. I am going to watch the SMH. Appears to this gap fill. And maybe even this 50 moving average. But keep the SMH on the window. Microsoft's falling. Spiders are still coming down. Nat gas is falling. Gold is even falling again. Let's take a look at SLV again. If SLV comes into this gap fill, we can go long SLV for a day trade. So basically a pierce of 23 bucks, 22.99, 23 whole number. I'd probably just have an order at 23 bucks for a long on SLV. So keep that window open. I will keep it open here, but we can go long SLV at that gap fill. Gold had just made a brief new intraday low. That's because the dollar made a new high. Here comes SLV, guys. Here comes SLV. Let's see if we can get a bigger sell in these markets to give us some sort of a volatility trade. I'll stay on for another 6 minutes till 10:30. But SLV is coming into approach here, and I'm going to look for about 10 to 20 cents on this trade. So SMH is I'm still watching the SMH. AMD is looking more interesting. It just went negative and making new lows. AMD is hitting its first level of support here. Alright guys, I'm going to go long AMD at this 88.60 level, 88.60. If once it hits, it hasn't hit yet, it has not hit yet, but I am intrigued. And I'm watching it closely, and I'm watching silver SLV closely. Alright, spiders are catching a bounce here. Microsoft's still negative. Spiders are coming lower here, guys. AMD is hitting our level. I'm not long. I am not long. I will repeat. I am not long yet. But that is the first support level on AMD. There's even a good level at 88.39. So I may let it try to pierce this level. Let's see if we can let it pierce. Spiders are still weak right now. The dollar's still pushing up. Nvidia is acting well. And I'm going to coincide AMD with the SMH gap fill. So the reason I waited is because SMH hasn't filled its gap. So I think AMD should come, but look at that bounce off of that level so far. But I'm waiting for the SMH to fill its gap before I go long AMD. If I miss the trade, I miss the trade. That's okay. Natural gas is falling sharply lower now as well. Down 1.5%. Big bounce in the spiders. The dollar's still surging up, guys, so markets haven't really responded to the surging dollar. AMD's bouncing off that first level we gave, but the SMH still didn't fill its gap. Look at Microsoft rolling over. Take a look at Micron, MU, that's rolling over. SLV got a nice bounce ahead of that level, so it never quite hit our level. Dollar's still surging, guys. Dollar is still surging. Nvidia, let's do a quick Apple check. Apple's pulled off of the highs. Amazon's still struggling. Do a Google check. I haven't looked at Google today. Oh, Google's actually holding up. Google's up or just down 0.1%, but inside of this initial reversal that we got right off the open. Alright guys, another round of selling looks to be coming into AMD. Recharging. Silver got a big bounce. Apple's coming down. Microsoft's coming down. Just plugging in some of these things. Alright, AMD's coming back down. The spiders are still waiting on the spiders. The SMH looks to be coming down to that gap fill, so get ready on AMD. Conservative traders can play the SMH, but I would let it pierce the gap fill. Microsoft's at the lows, Apple's at the lows, Nvidia's still holding up. Dollar's taking a small breather. Silver's got a nice bounce. Oh, AMD got a bounce off that level. But there's still weakness. Alright guys, I'm going to cancel this trade. AMD's off of the level now. Just missed our level by 1 penny. The SMH did not fill that technical gap. I'm going to call this stream to an end. Fortunately no trade today, but that's just sometimes how it is when the volatility gets sucked out of the market. Nvidia pushing up to new highs is obviously where the strength lies in the semis, but be careful. Nvidia's seeing some exceptional strength, but then the semis as a whole, the index is actually weak and put in a nasty little reversal candle there. It wasn't on that much volume, so maybe it can get negated at some point. But definitely be paying attention to this dollar, because what the dollar's doing right now ahead of Fed is showing us that maybe inflation is coming back and maybe the Fed is going to continue to be aggressive and hawkish with their monetary stance. It's a long day. We've obviously seen the dollar make big moves up and big moves down, but I'm still watching this hourly reversal breakdown bar on the dollar. If we get an hourly close in 28 minutes, that's bullish. And then if you get through this level on an hourly close as well, you're going to test this double top, 102.17. And the dollar just crossed the 102 level, so that's a big psychological whole number for the markets. If we start closing above that 102 level on the smaller and then the larger term time frames, these markets should adapt and should adjust with a stronger dollar. But the critical tightening range that the markets don't like for the dollar is right around 104. That is the tightening market for global markets, emerging markets. But nonetheless, we'll continue to pay attention to the dollar and see if it can catch and maintain some of its strength. On that note, thank you all for tuning in. Definitely be wary that people might take profits into FOMC and some of the semi earnings tomorrow. So pay close attention to some of those leading sectors. Take care, everybody, and we'll see you on the charts tomorrow.